What is up? Good morning and welcome to Monday Hangxiety. I am your host, Ryan Weisse, and if you are new to the show, this is Club Fantasy's weekly recap where we take a look at everything that happened on Sunday, and we are here to tell you when to panic and when to chill the fuck out. With me, as always, my good friend, the founder of Club Fantasy and Philadelphia Eagles fan with nothing to celebrate yesterday, Josh Hudson. How you doing, buddy?
I'm celebrating the fact that I, much like my team, decided to take a bye week. Okay. So I have no headache. I'm not hungover. And I slept like a fucking baby. So I'm Gucci, baby.
There you go. Josh with the no hangover on the Hangover show it's a new thing. Now, what's interesting, Josh, is you're super hungover when the Eagles are winning. Is this going to get worse when it gets worse, or is it just never going to get worse?
I don't know. I'm really kind of liking this feeling right now because, coming in and doing this show every Monday, and I'm always like, man, am I making any freaking sense when I'm on this show? So we're going to see how this rolls off the tongue today. And I don't know. This may be a theme going forward. We'll see.
And so I think you've been doing great. Like, we obviously lost Kira, and then I'm the host. I've been putting less and less in the show sheet because you've been doing really well with the good points you've been bringing up. And I feel like it's better if we just talk about what you want to talk about. So I feel like you've been doing great and you're making a ton of sense. So,
well, aren't you nice?
There we go. Let's jump into
the surround myself with yes men.
There you go. Exactly. Let's go ahead and jump into the recap of all of the Week 7 action so far. You will notice I am not covering injuries. That's because they get their own section this week. So I'm just going to be going over some games, maybe throwing in some narrative. Back on Thursday night, Cardinals with, I think, the highest scoring game of the week so far, 42-34 over the New Orleans Saints. Nothing too major happened in that game. The Baltimore Ravens sneaked by the Cleveland Browns, and that was a pretty fun game to watch all in all. Not the offensive explosion that anybody expected it to be, and Mark Andrews managers are not very happy right now. Speaking of not really happy right now, and it's going to come up in just a few seconds into the show, the Carolina Panthers with a 21-3 victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which I don't think anybody at any point saw coming. Cincinnati absolutely handles business in Atlanta, 35-17. Another just absolute monster showing by Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. The Detroit Lions were not able to stand up to the Dallas Cowboys. Jared Goff is turning back into a pumpkin, 24-6. Dallas wins. The New York Giants apparently are for real. They go on the road and beat Jacksonville 23-17.
I mean, look, are they quote unquote for real? They beat Jacksonville. All right, let's.
They're winning games.
They're winning the games they should be winning. I will give them 100% of the credit. They still have to play Philly twice. That's all.
I'm going to be interested to see how those go. The Washington Commanders just continue to make Aaron Rodgers and the Packers look like a terrible football team, and I don't mean they've done it all season. The Packers have done it to themselves, and the Commanders piled on 23-21 with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. The Indianapolis Colts continue their will they, won't they be trash narrative, and they lose 19-10 to the Tennessee Titans. Raiders beat down the Texans 38-20. Josh Jacobs went absolutely nuts, just like I told everybody he would. I was pretty happy about that call. Not that it was a hard call to make, but man, did he deliver. The New York Jets beat up on the Brett Rippon-led Denver Broncos 16-9. And then the Chiefs handle business against the 49ers 44-23. The Seahawks keep rolling, number one in their division, 37-23. And then the Dolphins sneak by the Steelers. It's been a weird season for all of these teams because the Steelers defense shouldn't look as good as they do, but these bad offenses they're playing continue to make them look good. But the Dolphins get the win, 16-10. Josh, before we get into the injury, did you have any major takeaways from yesterday's games?
I mean, honestly, the injuries were really the biggest takeaway.
I thought so too.
When it comes to the Colts, look, just play Matt Ryan when the Colts are in a dome. He's going back to Atlanta Matt Ryan, terrible outside, great indoors.
I feel bad somebody just put a tweet up. I can't remember who it was.
I think I saw it from Joey Wright from Front Yard.
Yep, that's who it was. Yep.
Put something out. And like it really is. It's coming to fruition. We'll get into a couple of these other games.
Yeah.
One of our writers, Chris Molina, and we were talking about the Jets and how they felt like a smash play on defense in fantasy simply because, how bad Russ has been.
Yeah.
I mean, even putting in a backup quarterback, there was literally no drop off. That should tell you how much trouble the Denver Broncos offense is right now. If I had any Broncos players in fantasy and me being the biggest Cortland Sutton guy in the world, I would be trying to trade them as quickly as possible right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something we've been beating up on, but I think it really comes down to now. People will defend Matt Eberflus in Chicago, but these coaches coming out of this Green Bay coaching tree not faring super well in this NFL season, and you wonder, and it's something we've kind of talked about, how much of what the success we've seen in Green Bay is just Aaron Rodgers and not these coaches whatsoever, and you just don't know what's going on. So,
well, I mean, and look at it too. LaFleur's won 13 games each of the past 3 years, right? And it's been because Rodgers has been able to throw. They've been able to run the football. Rodgers doesn't have wide receivers right now that he can trust. LaFleur is getting exposed as a head coach.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Like, I've never really thought he was a great head coach. Like, you see these guys that come from the Shanahan coaching tree, they always tend to make really boneheaded coaching decisions when the game is on the line because they want to run the football. The problem is that philosophically speaking, Rodgers and LaFleur do not see eye to eye.
Nope.
And their offensive line is banged up to a point where they just can't run the ball effectively. And A.J. Dillon looks like he has lost all confidence right now. Like, he has no clue what he's doing. Like, no holes are opening, and he's stutter stepping, and he's getting in his head.
Yeah.
And I mean, even Aaron Jones to a certain degree. Jones offers so much as a receiver, but you're getting absolutely nothing on the ground. And yes, that is 1,000% foreshadowing to later because I was
going to say, yeah, that's coming up. And our resident Packers fan, Joel Worth, is letting me know that it was more Devontae Adams than Aaron Rodgers at this point. So the loss of Devontae Adams has just really set that back. And I don't remember who called that game yesterday. I don't think it was Troy Aikman, but it may have been. But they talked about how the play where Amari Rodgers fingertipped that football and dropped it that's when Aaron Rodgers is missing Devontae Adams, because those are the types of plays that Devontae Adams knew where to run with Aaron Rodgers, knew where to be, and then more importantly, caught that ball 9 times out of 10. And that's just not the production you're getting out of this current group of wide receivers. So
I will say the last point I'll make before we get into the next segment. All that draft capital the San Francisco 49ers spent to get a running back, maybe they should have focused on plugging some holes on defense. That's all I'm going to say.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I also found it interesting that we saw Ray McLeod getting involved yesterday. Keep in mind, it was more in garbage time and everything, but George Kittle has his best game of the season. Like, you do all of this after you get Christian McCaffrey and you, 50-50 snap. I didn't look at the snap numbers on Christian McCaffrey.
No, I mean, look, I wasn't expecting McCaffrey to play a ton. The first couple times he touched the ball, 19 yards. Like, he's going to be a fantastic fit in this offense, but he doesn't play defense.
Yeah.
And that's your problem, because you've lost so much in the second and third levels. And I mean, look, I get it. The Chiefs are really good, and there aren't a ton of great offenses in the NFC right now, probably outside of Philly.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know Minnesota can score points as well, but so they have a really short road, but the teams you need to figure out how to beat are the ones that are in the AFC, and you just got ran through the ringer by one of the best teams in the AFC. So why is going and getting a running back one of your top priorities? That's what I don't understand.
I'm going to just pop this question up real quick. Josh, you already started. We're going to get to your question in just a second, Rendon, because it goes perfectly after the section we're about to get into. The new segment is going to be called The Unnecessary Shot of Rumplemints, and that's because you're waking up in pain. That's what makes the shot unnecessary. And this is all about the key injuries. Josh, I'm going to run through them, but you made the list, so I'll let you dig into them first. But we got Breece Hall, likely done with an ACL tear. Mike Williams, it's an ankle. It's either a sprain, but they're going to have an MRI tomorrow. David Njoku, sprained ankle. Ryan Tannehill, ankle, but he was able to come back into the game. Chuba Hubbard with an ankle. DK Metcalf with a knee. They're saying that one's not serious right now. Amon-Ra St. Brown with a concussion, and it looked like he was one of the very first victims of the independent, and I don't want to say victims because that sounds absolutely terrible, but of the independent doctor pulling him off and then just ending his game, which is, going to be the Tua Tagovailoa rule, and I'm all for that. Alan Lazard left the game late with a shoulder injury. J.C. Jackson with a dislocated kneecap, which was just terrible to watch. And then Evan Neal with a knee injury. It's looking like it's going to be an MCL sprain. He could be coming back later in the season if it wasn't torn. Obviously, the biggest of these, Josh, is Breece Hall, but go ahead and give your take on some of these. So.
That Breece Hall injury absolutely hurt. I just remember seeing So we talked on Wednesday, and we know our good buddy and co-host Joe Zolo, not a fan of young guys in Denver, rips off a 50, 60-yard touchdown run, ends up 4 carries, 72 yards and a touchdown, and then of course goes down with a knee injury, and it's like, oh man, what could have been? And then you look at the rest of the season, son of a bitch, what could have been? Like, there are so many really good teams because they were able to snag Breece Hall in that 4th, 5th round of fantasy drafts, and now we're panicking. Look, we've seen what we have with Michael Carter. He played well last year. Completely different type of running back than Breece Hall. The Jets offense right now is working because Breece Hall can control the clock the way that Michael Carter can't. Look, you're going to see some type of drop off, but to me, the big difference is that the Jets defense this year is light years ahead of where that defense was last year. You have a number 1 corner in Sauce Gardner that is absolutely shutting down wide receivers. DJ Reed from one of their free agent pickups that they got from Seattle, I believe he's played phenomenally opposite Gardner. So that defense is really what's going to hold this team together. And they're basically just telling Zach Wilson, don't fuck this up. It's the same thing that Dable is doing with Daniel Jones on the opposite end of New Jersey. Like, it's getting to a point where this offense, I'm a little worried because they're not getting the wide receivers involved at all. And now they're going to have to. So now the onus is going to go on to Zach Wilson. Hey, we need you to not fuck this up, but now we might actually need you to go win a game. So it's going to, like, I'm a little worried, not going to lie. But if you have Garrett Wilson, I like to think things are going up. I'm not in a rush.
They're going to have to pass.
They have to. 1,000%. They absolutely have to. I'm not in a rush to go out and get Michael Carter, because if you think that Carter is going to put up the type of numbers that Breece Hall puts up, you are going to be hurting. I'm telling you that right now. The only other injury that really stood out to me. All right, let's tackle.
Well, I was going to say, you happen to hit this. I feel like we need to lead into it now because you literally just said it. So he traded Curtis Samuel, Chuba Hubbard, and Hunter Renfrow for Michael Carter and Darnell Mooney. He's hoping that he hits a home run with Michael Carter. So right away, you're kind of pouring water on those, keeping in mind that everybody he traded was on his bench at this point. To me, I'm not angry at this trade because you didn't give up anybody who you can rely on, but you didn't really get back anyone you can rely on.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of feels like a lateral move. And the reason I say that is because Hubbard's going to get plenty of opportunity as well. I mean, I still think we probably saw the best game that Hubbard's going to have this year, because they are in, 1A, 1B split there between Hubbard and Foreman now in Carolina with CMC gone. But outside of that, it's basically, Samuel and Renfrow for Darnell Mooney, and that's not a deal I'm willing to take because Mooney's in a passing offense that is essentially non-existent. But I mean, look, if you like the upside with Carter, I don't hate this trade. I'll tell you that right now, because like you said, you have good depth. All these guys were on your bench. What you're ultimately trying to do is, I mean, you traded one running back for one running back, right? So you're not really getting any worse at that point. Exactly. Wide receivers don't go down with the same frequency that RBs do. I still think, I would much rather have Samuel over Mooney. I think Renfrow is maybe kind of on the downswing. We probably saw his best season last year, as much as we all love him here. And Mooney's going to see target share if and when this offense ever decides, oh, you know what, maybe we can throw the football 30 times a game.
And that's what I was
going
to hit on.
I would even take 25 times a game at this point.
And that's what I was going to hit on. Curtis Samuel looked better than we expected him to look with Taylor Heineke, but it did end up becoming a Terry McLaurin game like we did expect it, because Heineke has the rapport built with Terry McLaurin already. So the question is there ever going to be a situation where we see Darnell Mooney more involved in this passing game? And he has been the last 2 or so weeks where he's always been pulling 25 to 30% of the target share, but when the target share is 20 targets, it really doesn't matter. So.
I hear that. I mean, Mooney he's still the number 1 there in Chicago. He's going to see pass attempts. Like I said, the target share is definitely there. And it seems like over the last couple of weeks, Justin Fields has started to take a bit of a turn for the better. He's starting to not be scared to run. And that's something that we've talked about ad nauseum from the offseason to now, that it's never really been part of his game. It's not who he is. Yes, he has the athletic ability, but he wants to sit in the pocket and he wants to throw the football. And you know what? That is a quarterback's job more than anything. But at the same time, a quarterback's job is to move the football. And sometimes you have to rely on your legs to do that when the passing game is not there. And right now, with the way that offensive line is collapsing, the passing game is not there. It's a very similar situation with Kyle Pitts in Atlanta, which we're going to get to that here in a little bit too. But yeah, again, like, I don't hate the trade. It's not something I would have made, but if you believe in Carter, I'm all about it.
I like it better in a PPR league because when Carter did his work last year, it was in a PPR type format where he had a ton of targets heading his way in certain games, and you just got to.
Well, yeah, and he had 42 receiving yards yesterday too. So.
And we saw the 10 target game from Breece Hall earlier this season, so we know they may actually pass to their running back. So it's going to be an interesting situation whatsoever. The
only other injury from this list that really kind of bugs me. The way that Mike Williams is talking, this is mostly a sprain. The Chargers have a bye week next week. I don't think this is going to be an injury that keeps him out 7 weeks. Keenan Allen. And so we should be okay there. Obviously, you were missing him next week anyway. I would expect maybe a 2 or 3 week absence. Njoku kind of going to be a similar situation. Tannehill, I couldn't give 2 flying fucks about because that offense is terrible and you're not starting Tannehill anyway. Hubbard, this injury sounds like it's a legit sprain, probably 2 to 4 weeks. Dial up Deonta Foreman at that point. DK, kind of similar knee injury is, maybe it keeps him out a couple weeks. Concussion with a Monroe, you never know how those go. Allen Lazard has dealt with shoulder injuries in the past.
Yeah.
So that, to me, this is one that I'm definitely paying attention to because as much as we like to bag on the Packers wide receiver core, he's been the most consistent option. And he's doing it at about a low-end wide receiver 2 clip right now. So you want him in your starting lineup. So this hurts. I don't know that it really bumps anybody up. They did get Sammy Watkins back. Romeo Doubs is looking like a rookie right now.
Yep.
And it's hard because he's getting targets, which is great. And that's why I keep trotting him out in the lineups. But when you get 4 targets and 0 catches, you're killing me, Smalls.
I think you hit on the one I was going to hit on is the Mike Will, J.C. Jackson combination and just what this kind of means for the Chargers, because I was one of the people who were super in on the Chargers taking over in the AFC West. And clearly the Chiefs haven't fallen off nearly the way anybody expected them to. And now you're losing defense. You're losing your only weapon on offense outside of Austin Eckler. Your only pass catcher weapon. Now DeAndre Carter could step up. You hope you see better play. Maybe Josh Palmer's Palmer's just out. He didn't go to the IR, right?
Correct.
Okay. So hopefully you're going to get Josh Palmer back. This, it makes us look really silly saying, get rid of Josh Palmer the other day. Because
look, you can't predict injuries. I mean, what do you want from us?
But the question is, when does Keenan Allen get back? It's sounding like after the bye.
Well, he was back yesterday.
I was going to say, back because he caught 2 balls for 17 yards or something. And
and therein lies the thing. He played yesterday. He got it out of his system. He came out of it alive. If you were relying on starting Keenan Allen yesterday, your lineup in general is in a lot of in trouble. So the goal really was week 9 anyway, because you got week 7, you got the week 8 bye. Week 9 comes back, he's healthy for the rest of the season. Exactly. That's when you need him the most at this point. If you've survived up to this point, by week 9 you're 4-4, 5-3, whatever. If you're anything worse than that, say a prayer, light some Hail Marys at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say now you're starting to just play spoiler on everybody else's team. But really, what I was getting at with the whole thing there is then the Chargers go and lose a home game to Seattle, and we joke all the time the Chargers don't have home games, but they lose.
And it didn't sound like a home game at all.
It certainly did not. The 12s traveled. And so the Chargers are looking like they are legitimately in trouble at this point. Like, you just don't know when things are going to turn around for them now that they're dealing with injuries. And it's not good. They've had the Herbert injury, the Keenan Allen injury, the Mike Williams injury.
It's been an every year thing for them for so many years. And some years they're able to overcome it to a certain point, and other years they're not. And I don't know. It's not looking great for him, but as long as Austin Eckler keeps catching passes, dude's on pace for 129 receptions as a running back.
Yep. Well, that's the advantage of every wide receiver on the team being hurt.
Yeah, right.
All right, let's get into the blackout. You start drinking knowing one thing, you wake up seeing something completely different. And Josh, you hit the one I was going to hit on. We've talked about Taysom Hill in this segment. We've talked about the New York Giants in this segment. We are now talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I love the way you wrote this out in the show sheet, who are in fact done. They're just an awful team. And they're also leading their division.
Well, and you love how I put all that in capitals and then in lowercase WTF.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, what the fuck? This is the first time in 20 years Tom Brady has a below 500 record. Like, let that sink in for a second. Like, what are the Bucs doing? Like, I get it. The offensive line, it's hurting. You know, they dealt with some retirement. They've dealt with injuries in the offseason. Their only, like, real starting lineman at this point is Tristan Wirfs, and he's a damn good one. But we said it even in the offseason. The part of this line that's going to get Brady killed is up the middle, because that's how you beat Tom Brady. You get pressure in his face up the middle, because then he can't step up in the pocket.
Right when they lost their center. Yep, right when
and that's exactly what's happening is they're getting pressure up the middle, and it's flustering him. I mean, he still threw the ball 49 times. He had close to 300 yards. Great. Awesome. Cool. The one touchdown to Mike Evans, if he doesn't drop that ball, that's a completely different game.
100%.
To me, it 100% is. Like, I don't, I'm not saying that Carolina doesn't somehow find a way to win that game, but if the Bucs get up early, it's just going to exude more confidence into that line. But the moment that happened, it just completely deflated that entire team. And I said this the moment that it happened. Todd Bowles is not a good head coach. Like, I understand he had the vote of confidence from Bruce Arians. I think Bowles is a great person. I think he's a fantastic defensive coordinator. But it is a completely different mindset to be a head coach. And I don't think that Todd Bowles really has that need and desire to be willing to get up in someone's face to say something.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that bone in his body. Like, you're not going to be a great head coach with a passive mentality. I'm sorry.
I've also wondered about Byron Leftwich's ability to inspire or coach Tom Brady, because there's no way, I'm going to put this bluntly, there's no way Tom Brady respects Byron Leftwich. Like, there's zero chance. Like, you started football like the same damn year, and one of you is still playing and considered the greatest of all time, and the other one's now your coach. Like, I just feel like the anatomy of that coaching staff doesn't fit into what this team needs whatsoever. People respected Bruce Arians, and Bruce Arians never hesitated to yell at somebody. So there was just a lot different when it was Arians versus what this current coaching staff is. And they're in a funk, plain and simple. And I don't know who pulls them out of this funk, because it's clearly not Brady. Like, does he even want to be there?
Brady at this point just feels like, yo, I'm collecting a check. Y'all already fucked up my marriage, so give me something good out of this.
Exactly. And so it's an absolute mess. And Josh, that was my very first head scratcher, was the Mike Evans drop. I watched that play over and over again, and he literally, like, twisted his own hands over the ball, and just, it didn't look like he looked away. I don't know what causes that, but if that's not a faded play, like you said, the game was almost over on that play. Because if that's a 50-yard touchdown, we're talking about Brady having 340 yards and a touchdown. We don't even care about if it being a win or a loss. To where,
but even then, if you're the Panthers and you see them jump out to an early lead like that
on the first drive,
you're not playing with confidence. You're not playing with the mentality that, oh, we can go out and win this game.
You don't have the ability to rush for 150 yards or whatever.
Exactly,
because
you're playing catch up.
Yep.
Granted, it's great for DJ Moore, but, nothing else. Yeah, like this whole Bucs team right now, like, again, no idea how they are in first place. The NFC South right now is looking it's looking like the NFC least from last year.
100%.
Or in years past. And I still think the Bucs will win this division. Everybody else is just that bad. But it's not pretty. They're going to get bounced early. They have to be able to run the football. They really do, because you cannot rely on a 45-year-old Tom Brady to continually go out and throw 40-plus passes a game. It just can't happen.
I hate to predict injury. We've talked about that. I don't think they do win the division, because I think this offensive line gets Tom Brady killed. I think at some point Blaine Gabbert is the starting quarterback on this football team, and they're not going to win the division. So.
Well, you know what, though? That honestly, with all due respect, might end up being the best thing for him, because then they end up with a higher pick and can actually get a good quarterback. Because I promise you,
Yeah.
Gabbard ain't it, and Kyle Trask certainly ain't it.
Yep. And so it's going to be interesting to see if the Saints can seize their moment, because it's clearly not the Falcons. I mean, the Falcons have played way better football than any of us expected them to play football this season, but it's clearly not the Falcons. It's clearly not the Panthers. Can the Saints seize this moment on offense? Because they certainly have the weapons, and their defense has shown flashes, but they've also played terrible in other games. They just allowed 45 points to the Cardinals.
Well, granted, 2 of those were defensive touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah. So, yeah, Andy Dalton kind of dug him into a hole there, but Jameis Winston will do the same thing. So that one's going to be interesting. So, yeah, that's our take on the Bucs. They're done, and they're winning their division. We kind of alluded to the hangover.
It's a perfect microcosm, right?
Yeah, the biggest head scratchers of the week. I already kind of talked about Mike Evans dropping the football. What's funny is for Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, because Brady had 290 yards, 49 pass attempts, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans actually didn't have absolutely terrible games, but man, how much better could Mike Evans' game have been if he catches that ball? And in my house, it's just absolutely hilarious. My wife has this vendetta against Mike Evans. She saw that game a few years ago where he dropped like 4 or 5 passes in a single game and just thinks he is the worst wide receiver in football and thinks he drops everything thrown his way. So for her to be in the living room when that play was made, to her, it was just the epitome of what Mike Evans is as a human being. So it was all bad in my household for the Mike Evans drop. Josh, you had some takes for the other.
Yeah, I'll start with Jared Goff here, because I have a lot to say on the first one. So, and I don't want you to touch on James Robinson, but I think the mystique on this Detroit offense and Jared Goff is finally over. Like, he's got a couple really good games coming up that I think he can kind of get back in people's good graces. But Goff right now is nothing more than a streamer in a matchup-based offense. Like, he started off great, and that's awesome. But not having DeAndre Swift is killing him. Not having ARSB, Amon St. Brown, regularly is killing him. Because outside of those two, you have TJ Hawkinson, who had a very average day for what should have been a really good game, because he was literally their best option.
I don't know how many more times TJ Hawkinson needs to tell us that he is just a guy at tight end before we finally believe him.
Exactly. Like, it's absolutely baffling to me. Like, again, this guy was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft as a tight end. Like, to me, you should be really fucking good at that point.
Yeah.
And he's not proving it at all. And this is now his 4th year in the league. Yep. Like, I'm kind of over it. And that is, again, it's what's killing Goff, because he doesn't have a legitimate safety valve at all. Okay. So, I'm over Goff. You guys, we can move on. Like, it's. And
what's funny is we look.
It's okay to feel like you can drop, quote unquote, a top 10 quarterback in fantasy.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, he's a guy who I don't know, like, he was on my pickup list because I 100% thought that I knew the turnovers were happening. I even said it. I said he's going to turn the ball over 3 times. I think he turned it over 4. But I said, you would hope there would be 3 touchdowns. I think kind of what hurt them was that Dallas also wasn't scoring because they didn't have any reason to try to force the ball and this, that, and the other. So it was an ugly game all in all, but you're absolutely right. For my next head scratcher, the usage on James Robinson, and I guess more importantly, the radio silence on James Robinson. No carries yesterday and 1 target. A wonderful game for Travis Etienne. Kudos to you, Josh, who's been predicting this for a little while now, that the breakout was coming. But no carries, 1 target. He didn't catch that target. So literally no stats for James Robinson yesterday. And then the talk after the game was about him they want to make sure he's back to 100%. I followed this pretty closely. There were no talks of a James Robinson injury. And so if we're talking about back to 100%, this is screaming to me that he is another person dealing with this Achilles thing that we have bitched and moaned about this entire season. Cam Akers doesn't have a job right now, and you could argue that James Robinson doesn't have a job right now. This is precisely what we saw with Marlon Mack last year, where Marlon Mack, we were all, I don't want to say we were excited because we knew Jonathan Taylor was the guy, but everyone was like, oh, Marlon Mack's back now. How is he going to get the ball? He was a healthy scratch more games than he actually played. This is a brutal injury for running backs. It's not what it is for any other position, but for running backs. And we had Stefania Bell on the show earlier this year where she talked about it, the way it heals and the way they have to cut. This is brutal. And I have no insight whatsoever to say this is the Achilles injury, but what is he getting back from 100% from? if it's not the Achilles injury, to where I don't know what you do with James Robinson. He's not droppable, but I don't know that he is startable for the rest of this season. You hope for a good game and you trade his ass. So.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really what it boils down to with Robinson. I mean, it's something we were talking about before the show. It's like, with running backs, if they're a 1 or a 2, they have to be rostered in the NFL because one injury and they're now the number 1 guy, right? Exactly. It's the same thing that happened here in Carolina when they moved CMC. It's what's happened in Denver after Javonte Williams gets hurt, so on and so forth, trickle down effect. You can't drop Robinson at this point. He's just a roster clogger. And that goes to my point here with AJ Dillon. He has 100%. Done nothing since week 1. They are not running the football well in Green Bay. AJ Dillon is struggling. But again, you can't drop him because the moment you drop him, Aaron Jones gets hurt, and now AJ Dillon's value shoots through the roof. And it sucks, but it's the nature of the beast here in fantasy football. So I want to get that point out of the way because I want to start talking about the Atlanta Falcons and Arthur Smith. Everybody is bitching about how Arthur Smith is calling this offense, how he's not throwing the ball to Drake London, who was the number 8 overall pick in this past NFL draft, how he's not throwing the ball to Kyle Pitts, who is a tight end that was taken number 4 in the 2021 NFL draft. They were trailing about 90% of this game and ran the ball 29 times and only dropped back to pass 16 times. Like, logic tells you that is the most egregious thing that an NFL coach could possibly do. I have a theory. Okay.
I was going to say this. Before you get into your theory, I just want to say we killed the Bears when they did this exact same thing against the Packers. But I feel like no one's really going in on Arthur Smith like they did on Eberflus. So, yeah.
Well, that's because everybody's up in arms. Like they want to see Justin Fields do well.
Yeah.
Again, they want to see Kyle Pitts and Drake London do well. Yeah. But here's my theory. Okay. I don't know that Arthur Smith is on the verge of getting fired. I really don't. I think he actually schemed a really good offensive game plan. We saw it in Tennessee when, being able to run the football can help you win games, especially if you play good defense. And that's what Atlanta's not doing. But the problem is their division is so bad that they have a chance to win this division.
100%.
Which tells you that they're not going to make a quarterback change until they're out of it. Because they want to see, eventually they want to see, can Desmond Ridder be the guy? Because we all know that Marcus Mariota is not. He's been the number 1 overall pick. He's played in this system. He's done okay in this system, but he hasn't done great. Then he went on to become a backup quarterback, and now he has a chance to start. He is a plug-in starter that ultimately will eventually get benched and be a career backup until he decides to hang it up. That is Marcus Mariota. You went and you spent the high-quality picks on a tight end and a wide receiver to give a quarterback, not necessarily Mariota, but to give a quarterback quality offensive weapons. And that's ultimately what they're going to build around. But Marcus Mariota does not have the skill set to consistently throw these guys the ball 35 plus times a game. So if you still have a chance to win the division, what are you going to do? You're going to play to your quarterback strengths. Yep. What's the quarterback's strengths? His athletic ability, and that's what opens up the running game. So, yeah, they're running the football a ton. They're also throwing to Kyle Pitts at a high percent. It's just only 5 times out of 13 tries.
He's got a big piece of the small. Yeah, he's got a big piece of the pie. It's just a small pie.
Exactly. So that's the problem. Until that defense starts giving up exponentially large amounts of points, or until Mariota starts turning the ball over so much, or until teams finally decide, you know what, maybe we should start stopping the run, they're going to keep doing what they're doing because they're running the ball really well.
Yeah.
And until then, we're not going to see a different offense. It's plain and simple. Like you don't take a head coaching job with the mentality that says, you know what, I need to lose to get a better player. No, you're playing for your job at every single game. Like we can all be pissed off at the Falcons all we want. They have they have souped up the car. This car has a badass engine. They don't have a competent driver. That's the problem. And that driver, I'm not referring to Arthur Smith. It's Marcus Mariota. That's
and it's a really good point because obviously it would appear Desmond Ritter's not ready to come in and play yet. So there's a lot that's going on there. But yeah, you're going to build the offense around what's working. And right now, if nobody can stop your weird running game, I guess you keep running it. But at some point, when you're down 20 points, it's time to throw the football.
No, look, I agree 1,000%. I really do. But again, like Mariota's one pass, 75-yard touchdown to Demir Berg, right? What did he do outside of that? Nothing.
Almost nothing.
He had nothing. Yeah, I think he had 120 total passing yards, and 75 came on one play. Like,
so he had
not
7 completions.
Yeah,
50
not a great thrower of the football. Let's just be honest. Mariota is what he is. He's basically an option running quarterback right now. He's going to keep a defense honest with his legs, and he's going to have great rushing games, but he's not a really great thrower. So as long as their defense is this sort of like bend but don't break kind of like defense, which yesterday they broke into like 1,000 pieces because let's face it, that's what Cincinnati does. But like you weren't going to win this game anyway. So it didn't matter what you did on offense.
Yeah, why go out and get crazy?
Exactly. You had no chance to win this game. No.
I think the more concerning thing for Kyle Pitts has got to be the yardage. Because what did he start the season with? Two for 19, right? Back-to-back 2 for 19 games. Yeah. And then now it's a 3 for 9 game. And it's just like...
Well, they're not targeting him downfield. That's the problem.
And I get that. But if you're this like big athletic specimen, shouldn't you get some sort of yards after the catch?
I mean, I agree, but again, this goes to the quarterback problem. Like, right? If you're not getting a lot of yards after the catch, your quarterback isn't putting you in a position to be able to generate those yards after the catch, right? It's what we talk about all the time. With like, look at I'm like completely blanking on the wide receiver now, but I mean, Deontay Johnson, prime example. Like, we know how good he is with the ball in his hands, but he hasn't had a quarterback that actually leads him open.
Yeah.
So, you know, not everybody is great at breaking tackles. You can run by defenders all you want, but if a quarterback isn't throwing it to where you're getting hit on the fly, where you have to stop to catch it and get tackled right away, yards after the catch means nothing.
Fair. Just an ugly situation.
And he did have a touchdown taken away from him. Let's be honest.
He did.
That was a touchdown that he caught. So.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how they move forward because it doesn't appear Desmond Ritter's any closer to taking over this team. And I think you hit it on the head. They're tied for the division lead right now. They're not going to make any drastic changes until they're out of this thing. And in that division, who knows when they're officially going to be out of it.
Might not be till week 17.
Yeah,
in all honesty.
All right, let's move on to the good stuff. The shot of espresso, the quality performance yesterday that really got the juices flowing. And Josh, your Panthers take here is just amazing. So go ahead and dive into that.
Christian McCaffrey died so DJ Moore can live. Let's go, baby.
I don't even know that we have to say that Christian McCaffrey died because he went to a better team in playoff contention.
Honestly, who knew that Robbie Anderson and Christian McCaffrey were the ones that were holding back this offense? Like,
yeah, really. And Baker.
And Baker, right? Look, I never really thought that PJ Walker was like a great quarterback by any means, and he's really not. Like 170 yards and 2 touchdown passes, and here's the great thing: like we've seen DJ Moore rack up catches, we've seen him rack up yards, we haven't seen him rack up touchdowns. He caught a touchdown yesterday.
That's the biggest celebration. It's one of the hopefully 4 that he catches this year. Our buddy Marvin in the chat, DJ Moore.
Yes. But look, the biggest bright spot, and we joked about this the moment that Christian McCaffrey was traded, that DJ Moore was going to get like a 60 to 80% target share, 47.6% target share yesterday. Like, if there was ever a moment to sell high on DJ Moore, it might actually be now. Like, your sell window has finally opened, where if people see that and say, you know what? All right, I'm back in on DJ Moore. You might be able to move him. Otherwise, you know what?
In full PPR, I don't know that I'm in a big move to move him because I feel like this could be the rest of the season.
Because he's going to get plenty of catches. He might only have 35 yards for 10 catches, but hey, I'll take it. 13 and a half points from a wide receiver 2. 13 and a half points,
that's a wide receiver 2 performance pretty easily. So
exactly. So yeah, get happy to see it. I don't know what's going to happen when either Baker or Darnold end up coming back, more than likely as early as next week. But This was the literal shot of espresso that this Panthers offense needed. I don't think you're going to see this like lively offense every single week because let's face it, it is the Panthers. But the hope is there at the bare minimum. The hope is there that you're going to continue to see these high target shares. And because the Panthers are going to be losing, they're going to throw the football. This isn't an Arthur Smith. This isn't a Matt Eberflus offense. They're going to throw the football to keep up.
So the one that put a smile on my face and everything I'm saying here, I'm saying a little bit facetiously, but not really because I was really in on this guy. But McCole Hardman haters probably a little quieter this morning because what a game yesterday. And it was a weird game, but I'm not necessarily saying we shouldn't expect weird games. 4 catches for 32 yards and he finds the end zone. His 3 touchdowns lead the wide receivers in receiving touchdowns. Plus, he adds 2 carries for 28 yards and scores on both of those carries. It's almost like they're using him kind of like they used Tyreek Hill. And I don't know who's been saying that for weeks and months now. And obviously it hasn't looked great or anything near what we got out of Tyreek Hill. But if this is the type of usage we can expect from McCole Hardman moving forward, I, for one, am very excited to see it, mainly because I have to start him in like 3 dynasty leagues because I went all in on him and they're just absolutely shitty teams. But I will say I pulled out a win in a dynasty league I should not have won yesterday, strictly off the back of McCole Hardman. So
yeah, I think the thing, like you mentioned, them using them kind of like Tyreek. I think they're using part of Tyreek in
100%.
Mecole because Mecole still is not a very refined wide receiver. He's a great athlete. He's good on sweeps. He's not a good route runner, and a lot of that just boils down to he made that switch to wide receiver very late in college. Yeah. And it was, it's very similar to like these quarterbacks that turn into tight ends because they're just not quality quarterbacks in the NFL, i.e. Logan Thomas. Like it took Logan Thomas 7 years to figure out how to play tight end in the NFL.
Exactly.
So, and I'm not saying that wide receiver is any easier or more difficult, but for some people it can be. And sometimes when your athletic ability gets into your head, it's sometimes easier to kind of scale it back. So they're going to use him in these like jet sweeps and kind of like the short underneath stuff.
And that's what I want. So.
Yeah. They're scheming to get him open. That's what a good offense does. That's what we're seeing in New York with Wan'Dale Robinson. And, you see it with some of these other kind of younger guys. We started to see it a little bit in Jacksonville with Laviska Shenault over the past couple of years before they moved him. Yep. And, it's just that's what happens. You draft these athletes that, can be really dynamic with the ball in their hands. And a good offensive coordinator is going to be, all right, I got to figure out how to get this guy the ball.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone's questioning. Josh, you and I both hold Andy Reid in very high regard, and they were going to get him involved, but you're absolutely right. It's just, when is he ready to take these next steps? Because he's still not even at 12 yards per catch for a guy who's as fast as he is. And that goes back to your previous point of the yards after the catch aren't there. With him, it's not the quarterback. It's probably his own route running that's not putting him in a position for great.
Yeah, and I mean, and as much as I hate to say it, because this is now 2 fucking weeks in a row, apparently Juju's a thing. And I'm so over it.
It appears that Juju's a thing. It's almost like, and I'm not going to pretend to be the loudest speaker, but I was defending Juju as the basis of our show. But shout out to our boy Luke Sawhook, who has not rubbed it terribly in your face yet. So,
no, he did in the beginning of the season.
He did after the first 4
after
catches.
week 1.
Yeah, I remember that. And Josh, you have the best point, so I'm going to quickly run through mine. Another great shot of espresso for me was seeing Gus Edwards back in his first game. I'm not going to lie. I was pretty heavily invested in Kenyon Drake in my sports betting and in my DFS, and that blew up in my face because I knew Edwards was going to be back. 50-50 carry split, basically. However, everyone else who got a carry went for a total of 31 yards. Gus went for 66 and 2 touchdowns. What even pisses me off more, Josh, in my continuing saga of 2 touchdown predictions, I had money on Kenyon Drake scoring 2 touchdowns, and Gus Edwards did it. Yeah, and so like my saga of 2 touchdowns is awesome. Now I did win some money on Josh Jacobs scoring 2 touchdowns yesterday.
Fair enough. No, and that's the thing with Gus Edwards. I mean, dude averages over 5 yards a carry. Like he's a really good runner. We forget
how good of a runner he is. You're going to get nothing in the passing game out of it.
Well, and I think too, like a lot of people were really heavily into, Kenyon Drake and not knowing that Edwards would be back this soon.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he was activated, but it was always like, all right, well, what how activated is he? How high is the usage going to be? You know what I mean? Because we've seen these players get activated, and then the teams try to, slowly scale them back. Like CMC in San Francisco, prime example. Like, yeah, they said he was going to play. Dude, been there 2 days. Like, how much usage was he really going to get? And he saw still a good amount of usage, and he did really well with what he did. You look at when they brought J.K. Dobbins back, his first game back, I don't think he was really all the way back in.
No.
They still use Justice Hill quite a bit. Yeah, they still use Justice Hill quite a bit. Mike Davis was still getting some run. Why? I think he's still on the team. I don't know why at this point, but like with Godwin Edwards, great to see back. We've been kind of beating that drum, like, hey, if you have an IR spot, like, you need to add Gus Edwards because it's coming. And now that JK's out 4 to 6 weeks, you're going to see Gus Edwards with some prime RB2 usage, and that's going to fill in for a lot of these guys that have been hurt over the last.
I'm still going to throw some cool water on this one, though, because it could easily shift right back to Kenyon Drake. It just seems like that's what they're doing with their running backs right now.
It could, but let's look back at this. Who was the RB1 going into the season? It was J.K. Dobbins. Who was the RB2 going into the season? It was Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is their one right now with J.K. Dobbins out. Like, Drake's still going to get usage the same way that Edwards still got usage when J.K. was there. But when you look at the size of these guys, who's the one that's going to get the touchdowns close?
Who can take the punishment?
Who's going to get those 2 touchdown games, Ryan? It's Gus Edwards.
That would be the Gus bus. Exactly. No, it was great to see him back. But Josh, I definitely am very happy to see the final guy on your list. So.
Ken Walker is that motherfucking dude. Oh my God. That 74-yard jolt in the fourth quarter. Woo, that got the juices flowing. And it pains me to say, Breece Hall died so Ken Walker can live. Because that's really what this looks like right now, right?
Yeah.
And even more true to the point is Rashad Penny going down so that Ken Walker can live. But
that's the true.
You're seeing these rookies shining. And really, rookie running backs tend to take off a lot more frequently than rookie wide receivers, even though the last couple of years have put that mantra to the test. But yeah, Ken Walker is really fucking good. And with Seattle winning, you're only going to see more Ken Walker.
Because they were already going to run the ball a ton no matter what. And so now you have this, and now you have the DK Metcalf injury. So you're going to see more Ken Walker. And then these running backs that can break these 70-yard runs. And obviously we could argue that any running back can do that, but we just don't see it as often. These running backs, and Walker's now broke 2 enormous runs this season already. That's so good for fantasy because they could be having the worst fucking day ever. And one run fixes your entire.
And it's not even like he was having a bad game up until
No, he was having a solid game.
He had 20 some odd carries for 90 some odd yards, and 1 touchdown already. And then boom, 74 and a touchdown. Like, bring it home, big fella, bring it home.
And just, 74 and a touchdown. That's a 13-point fantasy play. That's an RB2 right there.
That's not even accounting for if your league offers bonus
gives
points
the big touchdowns.
Plays.
Yep. So now, absolutely awesome to see Ken Walker playing the way he is. We knew it was going to be good. And you know what? We worried about, and Ken Walker almost fits into the Nick Chubb field. We worried about, was he going to be involved in the passing game? Well, when you're breaking 74-yard runs, he hasn't at all.
Matter.
And when you're breaking 74-yard runs, doesn't fucking matter.
Nope.
As Nick Chubb managers will tell you, when you score 2 touchdowns, I don't care how many balls he caught that game. So.
Precisely.
All right, we're going to move on to morning mimosas. Basically, we get that little tingly feeling that something is on the horizon. Josh, you're going to have to talk me into this. I was going to fight with you about it until I saw your second bullet point.
But for me, this is really just a good feeling. Like Marquise Goodwin, we know about it.
Okay, I misunderstood it. So you're not saying you see a bunch on the horizon. You're just
I fudged this section a little bit.
That's all right. For me, you played with metaphors.
Yeah, this is really kind of a. We'll see what happens with how serious DK's injury is.
Yeah.
Because even then, if he misses 2 weeks, defenses are going to focus on Tyler Lockett. And we know about the Olympic level track speed that Marquise Goodwin has. DK's game is down the field. And Geno right now, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the top like
At one
passer
point, he had the
ratings in the
highest passer.
NFL.
Yeah, I say at one point he had the
like,
highest.
He is clicking on all cylinders right now. Like, why not Marquise Goodwin? Why not? So, I mean, again, this boils down to how serious DK's knee injury is, how much time he's going to miss, if he misses any. But, it's next man up, and Goodwin's that. So
I was gonna say,
not?
and you could see some draft analysts say, go pick up D. Eskridge. He has done nothing, like absolutely nothing this season, and so Goodwin was already playing.
He's a slot guy that they're not really using in the slot
because they have Tyler Lockett.
Precisely. And here's the thing too: like they play the Giants, Arizona, Tampa Bay. Like they're good secondaries, but they're not great secondaries that can slow down Tyler Lockett.
And we talked about
Goodwin gets open.
It hits on this show a lot, Josh. The second wide receiver typically can put in some work against Arizona. So that's kind of what you're hoping for here. I just have two quick ones. Greg Dulcich. I was down on Greg Dulcich. The reports were that he was not ready to be an NFL tight end yet. But his first two games are really inspiring hope for the fantasy community for tight ends. 3 targets in game 1, 44 yards and a touchdown, and then 9 targets in his second game with Brett Rippon. I don't see this changing. I feel like the scheme is the scheme is the scheme, and as shitty as the scheme is, you don't have Javonte Williams to dump the ball off now too, so you're going to go to the tight end, and apparently Dulcich is just that much better than Noah Fant. We've seen them,
and Alberto has been healthy scratches.
I meant to say Alberto, yeah, not Noah Fant. And I was going to say, we've seen them involve all of these tight ends, Andrew Beck and somebody else's name, Eric Saubert. Yeah, like they've been so weird. So maybe they were just waiting on Dulcich. And then this one more.
Real
Josh,
quick, before you move on to the next one, I want to give a quick shout out to Brandon Hay from IDP Guys, who we had on our draft Stars of Tomorrow show against with tight ends. He, like, Dulcich was his guy, like, one of his top guys out of here in this draft class coming in. And it's very rare that you see rookie tight ends really popping early. Dulcich, these first 2 games, he's popped. And I'll throw another rookie tight end out here too. Cade Otton with Tampa. Yeah. He's been getting a lot of run lately. 4 for 64, I believe, this past week.
Yep.
Look, we know Tom Brady likes tight ends. Otton's playing. There's room there, but go ahead, continue.
Well, I was going to say, this one actually fits more into your Marquise Goodwin take. Keontae Ingram is a guy who I really liked because of our own Joe Zolo, who got to see him live and got us all just super into Keontae Ingram. So I really liked him, and he has not had his opportunity. And you shed some light on this that I absolutely love, and I'll let you talk about it here in a second. Where Benjamin's going to get the hype, 7.7 yards per carry. But Ingram, when he touched the ball, actually looked good. And the stat line doesn't show it other than the touchdown. I think he had like fewer than 3 yards a carry, maybe even fewer than 2 yards a carry. But he was involved in the passing game. And I love running backs involved in the passing game. My worry is it could be a 3-headed running back by committee, but you've actually said in their coach's time that's not something we're likely to see. And Keontae Ingram is more likely to be inactive once James Conner's back in the picture. So.
Yeah, and look, I'm really big on Keontae Ingram. Dude had over a 90% catch rate in college as a running back, and that's not on like 10 targets. That's on over 90 targets. Like, that's insane. Okay. Ingram can catch the football.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. Cliff Kingsbury in his 3+ years here, he only plays 2 running backs. Like, that's it. That's all he does. So the moment that James Conner comes back, Keontae Ingram's going to be out. So as long as James Conner is in, Keontae Ingram can see some run, and he'll see some usage. He stole a touchdown early in the game when all of us were like, no, that's supposed to be Eno's because this is the big game we've been waiting for. It was still the big game we were waiting for from Benjamin. 23 points in fantasy. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I've been shitting on Eno lately as the 7th round pick, and I'm still not completely bought in, but he's doing what he's supposed to.
I mean, to be fair, Ingram was a 6th, and it's not like he was that much better.
Oh, no, I completely get that. I just mean the hot takes that James Conner shouldn't win his job back, and I just think we all need to cool on that a little bit. I think James Conner getting healthy is far more important. Cream or sugar, Josh? Buy low, sell high. Go ahead and give me both your guys.
So I kind of whiffed on this last week with Juju. So maybe take this with a grain of salt, even though we're talking about cream or sugar. But I'm interested in going out and getting Rashad Bateman. I feel like a lot of people kind of fell off that bandwagon a little bit, and
I did, and I was a Bateman guy, and I fell off.
Yeah, and Bateman's he's got talent. Let's be real here. He's still one of the top 2 pass catchers in this offense, and I understand it's a low passing volume offense. Mark Andrews got shut out yesterday. Bateman had over a 31% target share yesterday. And again, I mean, smaller pie, smaller,
but that's Baltimore
target share, but that's Baltimore in a nutshell. And we knew this. And look at how bad Lamar Jackson has really played as a quarterback the last 4 weeks. It hasn't been great. And that's coincided with a lot of those games that Bateman missed. Now you're going to get Bateman back. You still have Mark Andrews there. Better defensive matchups are ahead. We've seen now that they can work Devin Duvernay into this and how dynamic he can be to really open up this offense. That's going to help Lamar. That's going to help Rashad Bateman. You can probably get Bateman for next to nothing. Yeah. So why not throw a dart, stash him on your bench, and you start to see those points and usage kind of start to tick up? He can be a nominal flex play for you week in and week out. And
when is Baltimore's bye week?
Well, let's find out. Go ahead and continue, and I'll pull it up.
Yeah, see if I can find it real quick. But yeah, the reason I asked that question is if it's pre-trade deadlines, it might even be better to wait. But then again, if he starts to pop, it might not be better to wait. Since you started with Cream, I'll start with Cream as well. And Brian
10.
Robinson, week 10. There you go. So right around. See, yeah, I might even wait a little bit because you might be able to get him cheaper. But Brian Robinson's a guy who I'm probably looking to buy. All the hype is around Antonio Gibson. Really nice catch for a touchdown yesterday. However, it's overshadowing that Brian Robinson had 20 carries in the game after 17 in his second game. He's getting elite volume. There's no other way to put it. 46 carries in 3 games. He's only converted that into 155 yards, but that speaks more to Washington as a football team, their old name, but it speaks more to Washington as a football team than it does Brian Robinson. And let's not forget that he's doing everything he's doing coming back after being fucking shot. Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts around the Brian Robinson story. So I think he's a guy I'm looking to acquire because you want that volume. And as the weather starts to turn, Washington gets weather. This is going to be a Brian Robinson-led offense, and I want a piece of that. I'm very interested in this kid.
Yeah, I know. For all the talk about how down we are on Antonio Gibson now because they're using B-Rob so much, he's still the top 20 running back in fantasy.
Exactly.
Like, he's still getting usage. I mean, it sucks because you go into games like, oh crap, it's going to be the Brian Robinson day and Gibson's going to get fooled. Like, you still should be starting Gibson at least in a flex if you have him. Like,
well, I was going to say, we've talked about
really right now. Honestly, McKissick has become the odd man out when you look at.
And I literally said this 2 weeks ago. That's what was going to happen, and that's what I was going to say. Josh, is we've talked about this ad nauseum. Being the backup leads to higher efficiency. I think we saw Antonio Gibson go for 5.9 a carry or something like that yesterday. But on the season, he's at like sub 4, if I remember correctly, 3.8.
Yeah. This might actually be the best thing for Antonio Gibson, and all of us are too fucking dumb to see it.
And like I said, it's mind-boggling. Like, it was always going to be J.D. McKissick who died in this situation, but people wanted it to be Antonio Gibson because he was a pretender RB10 last year. And it just seems like people were a little bit too quick to write Antonio Gibson off. For my sell high, and this one just breaks my heart, it's Aaron Jones. It hurts me. It truly hurts me. But TD's absolutely saved his day yesterday. 2.9 yards per carry. Green Bay cannot run the ball. They have no idea what's going on their offense. And both of those touchdowns were receiving touchdowns. And if you want to talk about touchdowns being hard to predict, receiving touchdowns for a running back are a hell of a lot harder to predict than just about anything else because it happens so few and far between. If it's not Austin Eckler, you can't count on it. If I have a buyer for Aaron Jones, I am selling Aaron Jones right now. I'm ready to make that move.
Yeah, it pains me too because I was very high on Aaron Jones coming into this season, but most of the teams that I have Aaron Jones on, honestly, they're like heading to 1-6.
Awful.
I've got one heading to 0-7. Like, it's not great, Bob.
Yeah. The teams where I have Aaron Jones and Ezekiel Elliott, I pay 2 first-round picks to get Josh Jacobs. Thanks, Josh.
Love that for me.
Yeah. Because
which leads right into my sugar. Yeah. Go and get rid of Zeke Elliott. Sell high. We've seen the start of this trend, right? it's been all the talk was, Tony Pollard, he should be the starter. He's more efficient, blah, blah, blah. The second guy is always more efficient because the main guy takes all the beating.
Yep.
You talk about Brian Robinson being the guy getting all the carries.
Do we need to change the motto of this show? Like, I feel like that's all we talk about is the backup running backs are supposed to be more efficient.
Yeah, backup running backs are backup running backs, and they're supposed to be more efficient because, the lead guys worn them down. That's what Brian Robinson's doing in Washington. That's what Zeke right now is doing in Dallas. He has 4 touchdowns on the season. 3 have come in the last couple weeks. Yep. Zeke is RB 18, right? I still think you can sell Zeke based on the name and especially based on his last 2 weeks because he's been really effective. But if I can move Zeke and get a Travis Etienne, I'm going to do it. If I can move Zeke and get Michael Carter and a wide receiver, maybe someone like a Rashad Bateman, I'm doing it. Like, straight up, I'm doing it, especially if it's a PPR league, because in 7 games this season, Zeke has 8 targets.
Yep.
8. And this is a guy that is very, very effective as a pass catcher.
Yep.
And they've basically just said, we're not going to throw to Zeke. We're just going to bludgeon defenses with him. And that's it.
Yeah. I'll say even Pollard is only at 18 targets and only 2 last game. Like, they're not throwing to their running backs at nearly the percentage that we're used to seeing them do there.
Not at all. And honestly, the 2 games as Dak has played, he's really not looked good. Let's be real here.
That may come up.
And it hurts me too, Ryan, because I was right with you. This was going to be a baller season for the Cowboys offense. No, not it. Not it at all.
Let's stick with the Cowboys offense, and we'll get to your question here in just a second, Sean. But what are our thoughts on Michael Gallup? He is on Uppish's cut list.
I'm not cutting him. I honestly right now I don't know. I think you're gonna get some big games. He had a touchdown his first week back. But you're gonna get games like this. I mean, it's just the nature of having a good tight end as a dump off option and having a target hog as a wide receiver 1 in CD Lamb. We know that Dak likes Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz covers the middle of the field, and that's partly why they're not really throwing to running backs because they don't need to. Hendershot caught a touchdown yesterday. Like, I think this team is just operating with their wide receiver 2 as when the matchup is there, we'll take advantage of it. And I think that's how we as fantasy managers need to approach this as well.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It depends on my options and whether I'm cutting him or not. He's barely averaging 5 targets a game. He's going to have those big games, but I don't know that you're ever going to be able to predict. I am on the opposite side of I'm chilling out on the Dallas offense. I think they're going to be fine in the long run, but Noah Brown is staying involved. And then Dalton Schultz.
Well, Noah Brown's their slot guy.
Well, agreed. But, and then you hit on Dalton Schultz. He has not really been that involved due to injury and different quarterbacks. And I think you're going to see more Dalton Schultz. So but then he tweaked his knee again yesterday too. So,
fair.
So they said it's nothing serious on him. So I'm okay to cut Gallup if the right player is out there. It would have to be a surefire. Like Josh, let's bring him up because he's your number 1 ad this week. Would you cut Michael Gallup to get Wan'Dale Robinson on your roster?
Depends on my other options at wide receiver.
Okay.
But yeah, I think this would be a scenario where I would.
And I would certainly cut him to get Gus Edwards.
You're going to chase targets.
Yeah, and I would certainly cut him to get Gus Edwards if it's a flex type situation. Yeah. So speaking of how do we feel about players, how do we feel about T. Higgins right now?
He's fine. I think people are going to overreact because Tyler Boyd went off. I mean, this is a bad defense, plain and simple. Like, Atlanta sucks.
Well, I was going to say, 5 for 93. I understand he's not scoring touchdowns. That's what you want out of T. Higgins.
I mean, you didn't. I mean, look, I understand a lot of the hype in the offseason was that, Cincinnati could have 2 wide receiver 1s because, Higgins is that good and we know how good Jamar Chase is. When you get 5 for 93 from your wide receiver 2 in an offense, you throw in a touchdown, that's a wide receiver 1 performance in fantasy. Like, do not be mad about that at all. Like,
and then he was the 6 for 47 the game before. So
yeah, the touchdowns will come. Like, do not panic. Like, Tyler Boyd just got open. It is what it is. Like, for as down as you are right now on T. Higgins potentially, Sean, just wait for next week when Higgins goes, or not Higgins, when Tyler Boyd has 3 for 35. Like, it's gonna happen. I'm sorry. Like Chase, even like we've seen the down games with Chase when Higgins was doing really well, right? That's just the ebbs and flows of this offense. They're gonna take advantage of the matchups because they have the potential for that. That's what it is. Don't worry about Higgins. He's fine.
Yeah, we got another question, but it fits perfectly into our chill the fuck out section. So I'm going to quickly knock out mine, Josh, and then let you knock out yours, which will perfectly lead into the question because that's how good of a fucking host I am. I'm going to tell everybody chill the fuck out on the Carolina running backs. This was a high adrenaline game for Carolina. We talked about the drop at the beginning of the game, put them into a position to stay in the game. They were barely averaging 100 yards per game, and now they go off for like 150, let alone Deontay Foreman hitting 118 on his own, higher than Christian McCaffrey had hit at any point this year. I don't think anybody's going to argue that Deontay Foreman is a better running back than Christian McCaffrey. Chuba's touchdown was only the third rushing touchdown scored by Carolina by their running backs this entire season. These are anomalous things that aren't going to continue to happen. So don't go out and pay big money for any of these Carolina running backs. If you have those guys who are trying to sell high, don't be the sucker who buys for way too high of their price. And for Dak Prescott's first game back, I'm not overly concerned. He completed 76% of his passes. The yardage and the touchdowns are going to come. I believe this is a better offense than what we're seeing right now. So I am cooling out on, I'm not trying to move away from any of the Cowboys players. I understand it goes against getting rid of Michael Gallup, but more importantly, they're big players. I get Josh's point on selling Ezekiel Elliott, but I do think the touchdowns could stay there. But for the most part, more importantly than any of this is I'm not moving off of Dak Prescott right now. Chill out on Dak Prescott. Josh.
Well, I'll start with Juwan Johnson. We've been kind of talking him up like, oh, take advantage of this matchup. And then he falters. And, I wasn't near as high on Juwan Johnson going into the Arizona game on Thursday, simply because Arizona is so bad. Because at a certain point, like even in a good matchup, if a team is just not scheming to get a position open, they're probably not targeting him, period. So,
well, and the hard part when you have these teams that use so many damn tight ends is deciding which one they're going to get involved. You have the Houston Texans with O.J. Howard and Jordan Akins and all those guys. It's so weird.
It really is. So, look, we saw the big game. That's great. Awesome. He's probably going to end up back on your waiver wire. If you're a really savvy fantasy manager, try to trade him. Use this opportunity to trade him, because I'll tell you what, the next big tight end pop, it's going to be next week against Arizona when Minnesota throws a shit ton of passes to Irv Smith, because the big difference, they've been throwing to Irv Smith all year.
Yeah.
This is the blow-up game we've been waiting for from Irv Smith. So let's pump the brakes on Juwan Johnson. It's just not happening. And Ryan, I'll let you pull up the question before I get into my take here.
So what do we trade? Leonard Fournette and Tyreek Hill for Christian McCaffrey and CeeDee Lamb.
Well, that I would do in a heartbeat, simply because Leonard Fournette's really the only Tampa Bay Buccaneer that I want right now. Yes, he had a down game against Carolina in really what should have been a smash matchup. But when you're down that early, they're going to throw the football. Lenny still saw his targets. He's going to get his. But, Evans was open. They're playing off Godwin. J.C. Horn is still really freaking good as a corner. So, that's why Evans had 99 versus Godwin had like 64. I don't know, where Horn was lining up. I'll have to look at the stats later. But, you saw the efficiency right out of the gate with Christian McCaffrey's first 2 touches. He is going to be awesome in this offense. I still don't know or believe that they're going to target CMC the way that he's been getting targets in Carolina for the past few seasons. But it may not matter if his rushing volume is going to be that efficient.
Yeah.
So, and right now, I would prefer CMC to Lenny. I would prefer Hill to CeeDee Lamb. But with CeeDee, you can bank on the targets, because Hill's going to have the ups and down games, because, Jalen Waddle is going to be very involved. But you're going to get such a bigger upgrade on CMC over Lenny that I think it balances out the loss that you get from Tyreek Hill to CeeDee Lamb.
And we've talked about this with Tyreek Hill forever. It's something I constantly bring up. And plus, he has Cooper Kupp and Chris Godwin already.
You're fine.
Make that.
Get the upgrade at running back with CMC.
Yeah, because Tyreek Hill is boom or bust, no matter how you want to slice it. And he was boom or bust with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. It's going to be that way, whereas CeeDee Lamb gives you the safer floor, just maybe not the ceiling, but you're getting the ceiling from Christian McCaffrey in this trade. So
Correct.
yeah, I make that trade 10 times out of 10. Did you want to go in on Fournette a little bit more, or are you good?
No, I mean, I basically covered it here. Like I said, he's really the only one that I trust in this offense because he is so involved in the passing game anyway. You're not going to see the 7-8 targets every single game. You might see, 3, 4 most weeks, but, he's the guy that's running the football. And with a guy that big behind such a offensive line, he's going to still be able to break the tackles. He's going to fall forward. He can still average 4 yards a carry. I guess I'm down on the Bucs as a whole, but I'm going to still trust Fournette because of how involved he is at every facet of the offense.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we wrap up the show every week with our deep waiver picks, and that is brought to you by Connect Go. If you're not familiar with Connect Go, the links are in the description. Connect Go is an app that lets you connect with some of your favorite fantasy analysts, myself included, but Stepmom Lauren, Chris Robin, a lot of others are on the app. What you're able to do is set up group chats or even face-to-face video calls where we can talk about your fantasy team, waivers, DFS, really whatever you want to talk about. We're there to help you win a championship. It's all done for a small fee, and it's all done on the app, available on both Apple and Android. Check out Connect Go. Josh actually contributed to the deep waivers this week and then breaks the rules immediately. So I'm going to run through the 5, Josh, and I'll let you talk about Wan'Dale real quick. So Josh immediately writes, go get Wan'Dale Robinson. Normally, we consider deep waivers the guys available in 90% or more leagues. Wan'Dale's only available
13.5%. I still think constitute is deep enough.
I was going to say, yeah, he's 86%. And since Josh was breaking the rule, I dove in. Go get Gus Edwards. Literally, he was only 0.1% higher. Gus Edwards is the guy you want on your team if you're looking for a running back right now. And then the ones I threw in towards the end, Donovan Peoples-Jones has been heavily involved in this Browns offense, and love him or hate him, they're going to get a quarterback upgrade in about 3 more weeks rather. So you're going to see a better Browns quarterback play and a wide receiver who's already seeing a bunch of targets. Paris Campbell, we touched on this on the show last week. The coaches warned us that Paris Campbell was going to get more involved in this offense. And then he goes out on an 11 target game. I think it was like 7 catches and a touchdown. It was a really good game. And we already talked about Greg Dulcich. Not a whole lot I need to add there, but Josh, talk about Wan'Dale Robinson a little bit.
Right now, he's the wide receiver you want in New York with the Giants. Like he again, we're talking, scheming to get your talented guys open. Wan'Dale in space is really good. He's really fast. You see him on end arounds. He's running routes at an 80% clip. And they're throwing to the slot. And that's where Wan'Dale is doing his damage, because let's face it, a 5'7", 5'8" wide receiver just ain't going to cut it on the outside. We saw that with Rondale Moore on Thursday night.
Well, and you had a really good point earlier that they're scheming for him. And I think that's such an important thing. They want him to touch the football. So
exactly. And we've seen how they feel about Darius Slayton. Like right now, they're just using him because they have nobody else.
Yeah.
This regime went out and drafted Wan'Dale Robinson. They want to get this guy involved. So go get him. There is no reason Wan'Dale should be this low rostered right now. Like I literally have a league where the roof has just fallen off. It's been a quarterback problem.
Last week with Tyquan Thornton, pay attention to draft capital. They spent these seconds on them. They're going to involve them, whether you like the player or not. And I was a big anti-Wan'Dale guy because I'm bigger than Wan'Dale Robinson, and I just don't trust wide receivers that I'm bigger than. I am not a big guy. So I was an anti-Wan'Dale guy, but if he's involved, and you want a part of that. We're gonna get
you got to pay attention to the routes. You got to pay attention to the targets. And the usage really was what it boils down to. And right now, the Giants are using him. Obviously, that offense is still Saquon or bust. But if you have a piece that, they're getting involved next to the big offensive guy, it makes sense. And you know what, Marvin, you're a hell of a lot smarter than me. So thank you.
Josh took the words out of my mouth. Is if you don't want to believe two assholes who wake up on Monday morning to talk about Sunday, if you are not familiar with Marvin Eloquin, you should be following him first and foremost. Easily one of the brightest people in this entire industry, writer with the Ballers. I know he's doing stuff with Yahoo now. That's a must follow. And if he says Wan'Dale Robinson's a good call, then Josh fell into doing something right this week. So
yes. Hey, it only took me an hour and 15 minutes to get something right, but I'm there.
Josh, I'm going to read off the guys you can drop because we actually have a question about it as well, and he does not pop on the list, but you created the list, so I'm just going to read them off real quick. Cam Akers, still available, are still rostered in almost 67% of the leagues. Elijah Moore, 54% of leagues. Sky Moore, why is he rostered alone, let alone at 22%? Julio Jones, weekly reminder, he's still at 30%. You can safely drop Julio Jones, folks. And I love
added
this one,
last
Josh.
one just for you because
I was just
going
going to say,
guy.
Smiles.
Like, I went through and I looked at this because, to me, the two most rostered defenses right now in fantasy should be the Eagles and Buffalo.
Yep.
Tampa Bay is rostered above all of them.
Yeah.
They have 11 fantasy points the last 4 weeks. What the fuck are you doing? They're being buoyed by one game this year. That's it.
And this is a point I've been trying to lay to people at all. No defense, with the exception of maybe the Eagles, Josh, because we talked about their schedule last week. No defense has a permanent roster spot on any team that I'm on. You should 100% be ready to move on at a moment's notice. It is about the matchups. So unless you're an asshole like me who uses these big dynasty rosters to roster 4 defenses so I can stream whenever I want, in a single defense league, redraft league, you should not be holding on to almost any defense with the exception of the Eagles, and certainly not a very bad, very aging Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Such a great call there, Josh. But we have a listener who would like to throw one out for you as well. First and foremost, is Tyler Lockett a must start? I think so. I mean, as a wide receiver 3 flex, why not? Geno Smith's playing out of his mind.
You could put him in the wide receiver 2 conversation.
Yeah. And
in all honesty,
he's dealing with his own hamstring injury right now, but I think he's going to be fine. They should have a bye week coming up here soon. But way more importantly, Josh, since you made the must cut list, is Romeo Doubs Dobbs, whatever the hell his name is he a cut?
He's not a must cut. He's a sit on the bench and let him get right move. That's what Dobbs is right now because he's still seeing the targets. We mentioned earlier in the show, Allen Lazard with the shoulder issue. Sammy Watkins is now the veteran presence on this team with Randall Cobb out and Christian Watson's out. And, now again, Lazard hurt and we don't know how much time he's going to miss. So Dobbs is still going to be out there. He's still going to be running routes. Again, not a must cut, but definitely sit him because he needs to work through his rookie struggles right now. That's
really what I was going to say. How many times have we said you have to let these rookies develop? I think this one's pretty easily a Wan'Dale Robinson, though.
Correct. Yeah. Like I said, he's not a must cut, but I'm fine cutting him for the right player. And for me, Wan'Dale Robinson right now is that player in redraft.
Yeah, I would say of the list I gave, Wan'Dale, Gus Edwards, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Paris Campbell, Greg Dulcich, Campbell, Edwards, and Wan'Dale I would have over him. DPJ and Dulcich, I think I would rather have Romeo Dobbs. So
correct. Yeah, I mean, unless I was desperate for a tight end streamer in a given week, I might consider Dulcich over Dobbs, but I'm still hanging on to Dobbs in most instances.
Here we go. And this is a big one. Should he trade Chris Olave for Mike Evans?
I wouldn't do it straight up.
I was going to say, my gut is no. Just because Olave looks like the truth, plain and simple.
No, he really is. And shout out to Matt Waldman when we had him.
Yeah, called him as one.
That was his wide receiver 1 in this class, and dude's looking the part right now.
And what's great is he's doing it without touchdowns. He's only scored 2 touchdowns this season. So,
but he's also doing it without Thomas and Landry because they've been out. And really, that's what you want to see because when those guys come back, it's only going to make his job easier. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So
you can't double cover him at any point.
Exactly. You can't run that high safety over top of him. And dude has the speed. So I don't know that I would do this straight up. Like I would try to, maybe get better at a different position, whether it's running back, tight end, whatever it may be. But I think rest of season I would prefer Olave. The Saints are going to throw the football.
Yep.
Granted, they don't have great quarterbacks, but right now, like I know the history of Tom Brady is great.
Yep.
But the current Tom Brady is not great. I'm sorry.
Well, hey, Josh, would you drop Tom Brady for Trevor Lawrence or Andy Dalton?
Yes, I would drop Tom Brady.
I don't think
you're not trotting Tom Brady out as an every week starter.
I wouldn't do it for either of these two guys, though, because
at this point, you are in streaming quarterback territory.
100%. Yes. I'm good with that.
And Lawrence and Dalton, they're in streaming quarterback territory. So for me, it boils down to you need to start streaming the position.
Yes.
So that is the answer. It's not necessarily drop Brady for either of those two guys, but the answer is yes, you can drop Brady and start streaming quarterback.
And don't be mad when someone goes and picks him up and they wouldn't trade you for him. Like, he's their headache then. Don't worry about that at all.
Correct.
Then I think this is a perfect question to end the show on. Best stash player, because Josh, you and I actually were just talking about Jameson Williams literally before we went live on this show. I'm going to eliminate Van Jefferson. He is not in this discussion for me whatsoever. However, Kieran Williams, also interesting because of the Cam Akers situation. So, Josh, if you're stashing one on IR right now, Jameson Williams or Kieran Williams?
If I had to pick one, it would be Kyren Williams.
Okay. Is it Kyren?
Just because Kyren.
I don't know. I butcher these rookies' names every year until I hear them on national TV. So.
I'm going to always favor the running back, and especially with Cam Akers likely done in LA. And we've seen the history of Darrell Henderson as a workhorse running back. It never ends well.
Nope.
Kieran Williams, however you want to pronounce it, he's going to see some serious run when he comes back. And I'm always going to favor usage of a running back over a wide receiver. That being said, Jameson Williams, also a really good stash. Because
I'm going to throw one quick thing out. If it's strictly an IR stash, I added the word IR to this. If it's strictly an IR stash, you want Jameson. Kieran is not going to be on the IR next week. He's coming off of that thing right out of their bye week. So that's almost a guarantee. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, with Jameson Williams, even if Detroit keeps losing, they need to bring him back because they need to see what he has as an NFL player. So, because that's ultimately how they're going to proceed this offseason and into the next draft season and free agency and all that stuff. Because if they made a mistake trading up, they'll know it, even if he's coming back from his injury and not at full strength. But I love Jameson Williams. I think he's the truth, and I think he's going to help open this offense up when and if he comes back this year. But still, give me Kyren Williams over Jameson Williams as a stash play because, again, I favor running backs. And, again, we have seen the injuries already to this position.
Yep, and I agree with Josh. I've been watching this Jameson Williams thing because I've been on the Jameson Williams IR stash train for a while. They still won't give any definitive date of him coming back, so just keep that in mind.
And that is what hurts. I think Kyren Williams will be back here in the next couple weeks.
I think it's right out of the bye from what I'm reading.
It could very well be right out of the bye. Awesome. And go get him.
Kirk Cousins over Tom Brady, I think, is an absolute yes. I don't think there's even any question there for me.
Well, I will say, here's the thing, though. You have Jalen Hurts as your QB1, and that's awesome because you really don't need to roster a backup at this point.
Yeah, you're done.
If Kirk Cousins...
Go get Jameson Williams or Kieran Williams.
Yeah, right? You don't need a backup. Jalen Hurts is coming out of his bye. Like, I get it. You know, he's a running quarterback. You may want to have that protection of a backup, which is something I wish I had when Trey Lance went down. But it's okay to go into it not because if Jalen Hurts gets hurt, Kirk Cousins is already on waivers. That tells me most of your league kind of feels the same way about backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, they don't care about
backup quarterbacks. There's going to be quality backups at the position. So I would much rather grab Kyren Williams, stash him, someone like Jameson Williams, stash him, and then, because that's going to open up an extra roster spot anyway before that point. So then you can go and get the Kirk Cousins or the backup, whomever you need to do.
All right, Sean.
Love all these last-minute questions when we're trying to run through the show.
Yep, as I said, what do you do with James Conner? You hold. I mean, there's nothing you can do right now. He has no trade value. You're not cutting James Conner. So you hold and you start him when he plays. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. So not a tough question there. Josh, I'm just going to quickly run through the outro here because your mic and camera are fucking up like they normally do on a Wednesday night. So first and foremost, we thank every single one of you for tuning in. This show is going to be live every Monday. So always feel free to tune in. We don't always run until 12:30, but we're always going to try to answer every single one of your questions. Make sure you hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. We're giving away autographed merch every single time we hit subscriber milestones. We are inching towards 500. And when we hit that milestone, Josh has been so gracious as he is going to let you choose if you win the drawing. And I can only remember it's a Mark Andrews mini helmet, Josh. So
Mark Andrews signed mini helmet, signed Nick Chubb Browns jersey, or a signed Stephon Diggs Bills jersey.
Yes, the red Bills jersey, which is absolute fire. Make sure
No,
you're
I think
following
it's a blue
Club.
one. Is
I thought it was
red?
red when you showed it.
I don't fucking remember.
I'm pretty sure it's red. Anyway,
Bills
sign
jersey,
Nick.
and it's Stephon Diggs.
Exactly. It's Stephon Diggs, exactly. So make sure you hit subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Make sure you're following Club Fantasy for all of the content. If you're just looking for podcast content, every Wednesday we go live with our weekly preview. On Thursday, we have the sneaky starts with the sneaky girls who are going to help you with all of your lineup questions for 15 minutes on Thursday night, the most adorable show on YouTube. Plus, we have our IDP show. Every Saturday morning, we have an hour show where all we do is answer your start-sit questions. Plus, we have articles that drop every single day of the week, starting with my waiver wire pickups tomorrow morning at about 9, 10 o'clock. So make sure you're following Club Fantasy for all of your fantasy football content. We're live 52 weeks a year, except for Thanksgiving week. It's the only time we take any time off. 51 weeks a year, except for Thanksgiving. Well, same difference. It's what I said. Anyway, I am going to give us the outro. On Wednesday, we say, always remember that, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football. But way more importantly, remember that backup running backs are supposed to be more efficient than starting running backs. Have a wonderful Monday.